single London law firm pocketed a staggering 37.5 million quid to help the Post Office deny postmasters wronged in the Horizon scandal compensation deal. TalkTV's exclusive investigation discovered that the firm in question, Womble, Bond, Dixon, represented the Post Office in civil cases against sub-postmasters, including the heroic Alan Bates, over the course of a decade. I'm joined now by Varchas Patel, whose father, Vipin, is a victim of the Post Office scandal. Varchas, a very good evening to you. Welcome back to the Independent Republic of Mike Graham. I mean, considering that most of the people who were chased for money and were prosecuted and were made to admit that they'd stolen money were being done for relatively small amounts, weren't they? It was sort of 20,000 here, 25,000 there, and yet they paid this bloody law firm 37.5 million.
I mean, it's an obscene amount of money. It's a huge sum of money. I just wish the post office were spending these types of monies on actually compensating all the victims properly and fully. You know, the post office's relationship with very expensive lawyers goes back to around 2 decades, and they will use the most expensive lawyers and even have them pay for arguments which are not even legally valid.
No, it is extraordinary, isn't it? I mean, the story still rumbles on. Since the last time you and I spoke, where your father told us and you told us that you've still received no compensation at all, which is incredible. Has anything happened that's changed since we last spoke?
No, my father still hasn't received an interim payment, though the business minister has, if I'm not mistaken, he has advised the Horizon Scandal Board, the advisory board, shall we say, that the so-called 5 public interest cases, including my father, even after their convictions have been quashed, they should be treated to get their full compensation. So essentially, they will be treated exactly the same as everyone else whose convictions have been overturned. But no official statement has been made. My father's not received a penny since, and it's been, what, 3 years and nearly 2 months?
Yeah. Well, no, more importantly than that, we had Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister, standing up in the House of Commons to assure everybody that the payments would be made, that there were schemes that could be signed up to, and that the idea of the government was to get it all done as quickly as possible. But it doesn't sound like that's what's happened.
No, I mean, when Mr. Sunak, when the Prime Minister announced £75,000, I was a bit shocked because, see, most of these claims, if not all, are much larger than £75,000. In fact, let's take, for example, my father. His losses that I can calculate, that we can calculate, just in the financial year of 2010, are in the region of £77,000.
Right.
So, you know, to be offering £75,000 as potentially full and final, and I must clarify the details of the £75,000. I have not seen the details, and I cannot find the details yet. So it has been a vague statement, in my view.
Yes. Well, that's the trouble, isn't it? I mean, we've got a government now who are getting famous for saying things and not doing them. So we really don't want this to be the case here. Have you been able to speak to any other fellow victims that you might have been talking to over the course of the last few years, and whether they've made any progress at all?
I mean, I speak to a number of postmasters, you know, just on a friendly basis, and overall, generally, most, if not all, have not been fully compensated yet. And those who may have taken some monies, in most cases that I know, may have done that in desperation. You see, you know, we can't forget that a lot of these postmasters were bankrupted. They've lost their business, their homes, assets, savings. They weren't able to, you know, retire working within the post office with a good pension. So I don't believe most of these cases have been sorted out properly.
No, of course. And finally, have you got a message for these lawyers, these law firms who walked off with £37.5 million of our money, basically, because it was us, the taxpayer, who paid for them?
I don't have a message as such. But I did watch Mr. Dilly give evidence to the post office inquiry about Lee Castleton, and I was horrified. I think one of the comments the solicitor in question made was, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Castleton bankrupted himself. I thought that was very harsh and very mean.
Yeah, harsh and mean, I think, are two good words to describe what they've been doing. Thank you very much indeed. That's Varchas Patel, the son of Vipin, who is still waiting for compensation.